Hello and welcome to the Enterprise Talk Conversation Series, a peer knowledge resource by the CXOs for the CXOs. Now to our host, Kanika Goswami.
We welcome you to our podcast on stage with enterprise thought leaders. My name is Kanika Goswami and I'm the managing editor of On.Media's B2B enterprise technology publications. We have engaging conversations with global thought leaders and industry experts. And we have one such here, Nikki Truss-West from ORX Cyber. ORX, the Global Association of Operational Risk Professionals, has discovered that 78% of banks and insurers are finding it either difficult or very difficult to fill cyber risk team vacancies. The findings come from their Cyber Roles and Responsibilities Studies 2025, which was released, I think, last week, and is the latest in a series of reports from the company on the topic. The report looks at the role requirements and challenges across 3 lines of defense, providing insights to help customers with recruitment and cyber controls oversight. Nikki Truss-West, the ORX Senior Research Manager, is joining us today to discuss it a little bit. Welcome to the podcast, Nikki. A few words about her. She's a research senior manager, like I just said, bringing over 5 years of experience in operational risk research. Throughout her tenure, she's played a key role in advancing ORX Cyber, a dedicated service supporting second-line cyber risk managers in the financial services sector, responsible for leading the premium service specifically tailored for second-line cyber risk management professionals. She's a physics and mathematics graduate with exceptional numerical, analytical, and organizational skills. She's a passionate lifelong learner and most recently completed a postgraduate diploma in artificial intelligence. Is there something you'd like to tell us about the organization or, ORX Cyber?
Yeah, absolutely. So ORX is a research association that has been around over 20 years now. So we are an association of financial services firms that come together to exchange insights, data to progress the understanding of operational risk. The ORX Cyber Service is the newest service offered by ORX, so started in 2021 and has the goal to progress cyber risk management specifically. So we have over 30 subscribers from across the globe, so banks and insurers that come together to talk about how they can improve their cyber risk management practice, exchange data that can help them do that. So we have a lively community of cyber risk managers as part of the service.
That's good to know. So my first query, I would say, if not a question, is what does ORS research identify as a role requirements for cybersecurity roles in the financial sector?
Thank you. Yeah, so we see that there's a real blend of requirements for those in cyber risk management roles. So perhaps unsurprisingly, there's an emphasis on really strong technical skills, so very thorough and hands-on understanding of cybersecurity. The study identified 2 top requirements for those in cyber risk management roles. So that's experience in first-line cyber teams and relevant qualifications or certifications. So things like CISSP, CISM, or relevant degrees, things like cybersecurity or computer science. And as well as that, a background in risk management is also really beneficial because the nature and the pace of that second line risk management role is quite different to the more operational role in the first line. And then we can't forget about soft skills as well. So those are essential, being a really great communicator, being able to work with and manage the expectations of lots of diverse stakeholders, and then maintain really strong relationships with those individuals. So those are the key requirements we see for people in those roles.
So if we were to talk about the financial sector specifically, do you think there would be any additional requirements for people in that, for those positions?
I think an understanding of certain emerging technologies, so financial services in particular, are really reliant on things like cloud technology. So people coming into those roles need to be familiar with that and be prepared, have the experience to manage those. And other technologies that are part of that digital transformation that financial services firms are undergoing. So we see a lot of attention on things like AI, potentially quantum down the line as well. So those are all financial services technologies, or technologies being adopted by the financial services industry.
So these seem to be fairly straightforward requirements for any cybersecurity professional. So why the challenges, do you think, and what are the challenges that organizations in the sector find in filling these roles adequately well?
I think it's such a competitive field. You know, cyber skills are in demand across every industry, so they're not just competing with other financial services firms. We see a lot of individuals transitioning from financial services to other industries like tech firms. Finding candidates with the right background can be tricky, especially when you're recruiting for a really small team. So we also saw in the study that most second-line cyber risk management teams are fewer than 10 individuals. So you have to be really, really confident that the people you're hiring are the right fit. And then one specific challenge that was highlighted by our cyber subscribers was the impact that institutional knowledge can have. So it isn't just about having the right qualifications and skills. Every organization views and manages cyber risk in their own way. So filling that requirement can be pretty tricky as well, ensuring that someone's background is compatible with the way your organization approaches cyber risk.
But certifications are available, educational qualifications are available. It must not be difficult to acquire these skills. What then is a challenge that organizations would face to, when skills are available in the market, what is the challenge in hiring them?
It's a great question.
There is competition because there are enough people with those kind of skills, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that, unfortunately. There are lots of people out there with the skills and the qualifications, perhaps in the second line risk management. So we have heard from some firms that there can be a bit of a challenge getting the people who are well-rounded enough, because it's such a unique position in that you're dealing with lots of senior stakeholders. You have to have those soft skills as well. So finding people with the technical and the soft skills together, that could be contributing to the challenge.
I just wanted to know what the financial sector itself, the operators, the organizations, the enterprises in the sector can do to make sure that they have enough cyber skills at their disposal, enough people for second line managers for cybersecurity. What is it? Is there anything that they can do to make sure that they don't, run short of skills? Because cybersecurity is a very critical thing right now for all organizations across all sectors. Isn't that true?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
What can they do?
Yeah. So being part of a community like ORX Cyber, that allows organizations to understand what skills are being required for these types of roles, and also to understand what skills might be required in future. So for example, our roles and responsibility study allows firms to really explore in detail what kind of activities those second line risk management teams are responsible for versus those in the first line, and then map that to the kind of skills that they may need in future. So for example, the study highlights that over half of second line risk management teams are responsible for oversight of AI and start to plan for that in the future. Also, as well as growing the teams, organizations need to be really mindful of upskilling and retention of their existing staff. So with the risk landscape really rapidly evolving, new technologies, organizations have got to be really committed to providing those training and development opportunities to people just to stay on top of those emerging risks. So AI, cloud, quantum, thinking about what's on the horizon and what may come in future. So it isn't just about bringing new people into the team, but ensuring that the team you have is as well equipped as possible.
So the report looks at role requirements and challenges across 3 lines of defense. Would you like to share with us what those 3 lines of defense are for a financial sector organization? How how can they be defined into clear 3 lines?
Absolutely. So when it comes to the 3 lines of defense, what we understand by this model is that the first line are the risk owners. So that first line of defense against a cyber event manifesting is that frontline staff, all the internal systems, all of the day-to-day people within the business are preventing that risk from manifesting. The second line then, so that's the audience that we cater to as part of the ORX cyber service. Those are risk oversight professionals, so specifically tasked with managing the risk as the core of their role. So risk management and compliance functions. So they oversee the policies, the procedures, the tools that the first line have implemented. And then the third line is risk assurance, so the internal audit function. So providing some independent assurance that the risks are being adequately managed across the organization. And then some organizations have what we call line 1.5, which is sort of sitting between that those first line risk owners and the second line risk oversight. But we don't see that in every single organization.
Thanks for explaining it so clearly, Nikki. Grateful for that. So, how would you recommend companies benchmark cyber risk management roles and responsibilities? What role, and I mean, once they do that, what role will this exercise play in acquiring the best skills that the sector needs?
Thanks, Kanika. So I think really the exercises like this one, so the roles and responsibilities study, so it's been developed as part of the community. So our subscribers identifying, what it is they want to compare themselves or compare to their peers. So understanding, in real detail, what are my peers doing to manage cyber risk? Is my second line team responsible for that, or is my first line team? That helps that benchmarking to see, generally the industry is doing it this way. Our organization is doing something slightly different. And it may be that if a particular organization is doing something in a different way to the industry as a whole, that there's a good reason for that, or they may want to think about, so perhaps we need to make some changes because the industry approach would be a better fit. And in terms of how that impacts skills, so as I mentioned, understanding any changes in how the industry in general is approaching, cyber risk management activities. So knowing that the first line is responsible for defining policies, whereas the second line, is that more oversight role. That helps to understand what skills will be needed within those teams, and also really clearly documenting the roles and responsibilities is essential, because that way it supports that ensuring that the skills you're acquiring are the right ones for your team, and having that clarity of who's responsible for what really helps in the recruitment process, knowing that you're getting the right people in.
So, since you've been leading the team that did this research, in your opinion, and take your time to think about it, what do you think is the single biggest takeaway that a reader of this report can take from it?
That's a great question. What's my biggest takeaway?
No hurry.
Yeah, okay. I think that for me, the biggest takeaway from the report is that the industry, or from what we've seen, is that there's a lot of really clear understanding about roles and responsibilities. Most organizations are in agreement about a lot of things, but that there is some change happening. So the scope of the role of a second line cyber risk manager, for example, is really growing. So the number of activities that they're responsible for or asked to be involved in the oversight of is just constantly expanding. And that means that people in those sorts of roles need to be adaptable. They need to, be able to continually learn and develop so that they can be successful in that type of role. So it isn't just cyber that people are being asked to manage and to oversee. There's a lot of overlap with things like regulatory compliance, technology, third party. So that's the biggest takeaway to me, is that the skills needed to be successful in a cyber risk management team are bigger than you think, because the role is bigger than you think.
And as of now, as AI tools continue to become more threatening, even though they are a bigger help, would you agree that the cyber skills that are needed in this sector also need to have a very high um, artificial intelligence and analytics ability to be able to identify threats or mitigate them? This should be one of the bigger requirements, right?
Absolutely. So we're certainly seeing that the impact of AI is significant in terms of cyber risk.
Yeah.
So not just the threat landscape, but also the potential benefits of AI for things like risk management. So being able to leverage AI as a positive tool in that space. In order to be able to do that, you need people in your team that understand AI, that are familiar with how it works. They don't necessarily need to have the technical background of building an AI model, but in order to be able to specify, what we need from it, then you've got to have that fundamental understanding. And because it's evolving so rapidly as well, people need to have some baseline knowledge of AI. It's sort of non-negotiable now. And to know, from a threat actor point of view, what are the latest capabilities that they are capable of harnessing.
What I was asking. So these are my questions. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience, especially in the financial sector, what they should be ready for when you're researching, when you're talking to people, when you're studying customer responses or CIO or CISO responses? What did you think? If there's anything you can share about what they should be, and ready with, not ready for. What is it that they need to be ready with? So exceptional top-notch cybersecurity tools, they have to know. AI, they really need to know. They need to have soft skills, as you very rightly mentioned, because second line, they have to manage their bosses as well as their subordinates. So of course, soft skills are a huge deal. So anything else that you would like to add to that?
I think as well, it isn't just AI in terms of the things that people need to be aware of. So cloud adoption is obviously something in financial services that has been really transformative. So every single financial organization is using cloud to an enormous extent now, and people can kind of forget how transformative that is in terms of the cyber risk landscape. So, and then also looking even further down the horizon, people are starting now to think more about quantum technologies and what impact that'll have on financial services. So
That
those
was
are
going
kind
to
of.
be, I wanted to ask you this question, but I thought it's going to be too far, looking too far into the future. Once quantum computing starts and then encryption falls apart and, cryptography doesn't help you, then what are the kind of skills that you recommend for this sector? So, yes, of course, that's a big risk looming on the horizon, of course.
I'm not quite sure I know exactly the skills that would be required that far down the line, but certainly I think the conversation is starting now around cloud and what practical steps organizations can take in the short and medium term.
5 years, I'm told. Not before 5 years. But this, of course, everything is developing so fast, so one never knows.
Yeah, I mean, we had conversations with cyber subscribers. I think it was two years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and it was such a small footnote that people were kind of like, oh well, we need to think about quantum in the long term. But it seems to have really turned a corner, and people are really thinking about it in the sort of 3 to 5 year horizon now. And we're starting to see some financial services regulators talking about the plans for the quantum adoption now. So it seems to be a topic that people are thinking a lot more seriously about in the last 12 months.
So that will be it for today. And thank you so much, Nikki, for making time for us. I really enjoyed this conversation, mostly because it was a conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely.
Thank you so much for being with us. Please do follow us on social media for regular updates and new content.